sound as well. Oh, Paulina, you're recording. Wonderful.
Yeah. Yes.
And I should be able to see. Where is my screen? Why? Oh, here we are. Sorry. Oh, it's not thank you. I started with the end. You see, when you're stupid, you're stupid.
Why am
Here.
I on the screen?
I don't know. I'll take you out. Ah, there you
Thank
Okay.
Great.
Now, can all of you see this well? Can you see the contemporary American drama
Yes.
postmodernism?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Okay. So, when I had to select a play to illustrate postmodernism, we were talking a second ago about this. It took me but a second to pick this play. On the one hand, it would allow me to delve into the complexities and particularities of the movement in drama, some shared by prose, but others that are unique to drama. And it would also give me the opportunity to revise much literature that sometimes all of us in the academia, especially in South America, we tend to overlook. Perhaps for its lack of novelty, I want to say, granted, the 16th and 17th century poetry is not very novel, but it would also allow us to revise a little bit of Shakespeare, revise quite a bit of John Donne, and at the same time, it would give me the opportunity to teach this author that many, I believe, may call a one-hit wonder. Um, because Edson only wrote this play. Apparently, she only wants to write this one play, and because this is what she wanted to do. And I think that is one of our sins in academia. We're looking for authors, that may bring the promise of more works in the future so that we can keep studying them, etc. As if the fruitfulness or productivity of an author would ensure quality, right? And I believe that is why Edson is not further studied. And at the same time, it would tip the scales on the traditional male dominance of our readings in the academe, right? In academia. So far, so good. We have 3 female playwrights and 2 male playwrights, so that is fine with me. Now, when it comes when it was time to our oral presentations, and I do hope that you could see them. If not, they are in the class section with everything else. Maria Jose Omodeo came to me and asked me where she should stand regarding the movement of the play, right? So that she could analyze the play. And she mentioned the epic theater, but wondered on further inspection if she were not to take up the theater of transformation. So last class, I took up Peter Brook and his taxonomy of drama, right? The deadly theater, the holy theater, the rough theater, and the immediate theater. And I realized that this was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to survey 20th century drama and tackle some of the schools and trends in it. And speaking of trends, schools, and movement, I repeat, go to the class section of Unit 2 and see my Harlem Renaissance presentation. That may help you, you may like it. And then if you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me. Now, okay, what to expect today? This is our class today in a nutshell. We're going to talk about the epic theater, a type of and approach to drama of the, there's a typo there, of the 1920s through 1950s, focused on addressing issues related to contemporary existence, aiming at having audiences think instead of feel, and staged by means of very particular gestural techniques. And then we're going to go on to the theater of transformation. This is the theoretical portion of the class, an approach to drama marked by a change in sensibility in tune with the cultural transformations of postmodernism, taking up postmodern features such as anti-form, anarchy, exhaustion, silence, deconstruction, text, intertext, parataxis, and indeterminacy. Go look up all these terms. And then the last two, the second half of the class is going to be the last two points together, actually, intertext and their significance, and a close reading of the play. We're going to do a close reading, and whenever we have an intertext, I'm going to delve into that discussion. Okay? So far, so good. Am I letting anyone down with this layout? Hopefully not. So, before we go into the epic theater, there was theater, right? The epic theater is early 20th century. There was theater before the epic theater. We know that since Shakespearean times and since the Greeks before that. So the forms of drama that dominated the European, British, and American theater in the early to 19th century were the melodrama and the well-made play, right? Both were very artificial styles that presented well-defined stereotypical characters such as the villain or the hero or the ingenue, or like the innocent girl. Melodrama was primarily, it consisted of a very sentimental, emotional plots with close, decisive endings. And the well-made play similarly consisted of very unnatural declamatory acting and a predictable structure. A clear beginning of the action, a series of climaxes or surprises, and a winding down or denouement, which draws attention, draws the action, closes the action, ties the action down, and produces closure and a well-defined ending, right? But this is early to mid 19th century. By the late 20th century, writers like Émile Zola in France, Henrik Ibsen in Norway, or August Strindberg in Sweden started resisting these dominant forms of drama that offered mindless entertainment in favor of a drama that offered humanity's truths. That's what they wanted. And so realism, think, and if in doubt, think of the realist novel and later, or prose, and later naturalist prose, which is the two movements that I'm going to be discussing here. Realism as a dramatic form seeks to provide audiences with factual descriptions of events that they could recognize as their own, right? Everyday middle class life, right? Evidently, realism rejects any stylistic effect. And of course, the fourth wall is always present because you do not talk to audience members. The idea was to create an authentic experience. Following basically the Aristotelian idea of mimesis, right? Or mimesis. Just art recreating life as it is, right? Think of that the 19th century is the century in which the newspaper was born. And so there was this obsession with the true depiction of life, right? A realistic play is authentic. It uses as many genuine props as possible and locates the action in recognizable times and places, right? Language is presented as very common language, speech. It's the speech of the audience. I was saying that earlier. And characters aim to represent complex human beings with a consistent and stable personality and psychology, right? Politically, realism in theater seeks to investigate, social and material conditions, mores, values, customs. Realism deals with potentially disturbing issues such as marriage or marital problems or the oppression of women, voting, the class system, madness, even venereal disease, or political corruption. And audiences are invited to see those representations of life as real life issues, right? Dramatic realism seeks to naturalize the relationship between stage representation and the outside world, suggesting that the representation is reality. You follow? There is like the full suspension of disbelief experience here, not only during the 2 hours or hour and a half of the play, but what we saw is what really happens in the world. And therefore, it claims to expose and examine social reality, right? Realism ultimately winds up creating and reinforcing certain concepts through the representation that is the repetition that is representation, right? So all of this takes us to the 20th century. Now, the epic theater is a theatrical movement that was born in the early 20th century, extending through the mid-century. Now, I need to make a point, a very particular point here. The epic theater is one of the movements in modern theater, but far from the only one. Remember that there is expressionism, there is surrealism, there is all the whole gamut, and realism kept strong. So the epic theater is not a synonym of modern theater. The epic theater is modern, but not all modern theater is epic. Remember that. Because the epic theater is also very political. It arose from the work of ideas of different theater practitioners in answer to the political climate of the time. And so, as I said, it was a new form of political theater. Some of the leading figures of the movement include Erwin Piscator, who in fact coined the term in 1924 through 1927 while working in Berlin. Vladimir Mayakovsky, Vsevolod Meyerhold, and of course our very well-known, perhaps the best for us in English literature, Bertolt Brecht, right? Now, Piscator aimed to encourage playwrights to address issues related to contemporary existence. This new subject matter would be staged by different means, very specific means, and they wrote them down, by documentary effects. The epic theater incorporates a mode of acting that utilizes what Brecht called gestus, right? So certain gestual mannerisms. And one of Brecht's most important aesthetic innovations prioritized function over the sterile opposition between form and content. Now, that is our dear old friend Bertolt Brecht, um, and who was born in the very late 19th century, and he was German. He was a playwright, a poet, and a theater practitioner. He also did theater. He was a socialist and believed in the transformative power of art. To him, that's our first quote, art is not a mirror with which to reflect society, but a hammer with which to shape it, he said. His ideas highlight the beliefs in the power of art to exert changes in society. And I'm going to quote Annette Sadik here, who said that to him, theater was a catalyst for social change, end quote. He despised the bourgeois values of the theater of the time, of realist theater in the early 20th century. And he believed that drama was not supposed to entertain mindlessly, but to create disturbance in the audience, who was to be the audience members who were to be active participants in the theatrical event. Now, attention, careful, because he objected mindless entertainment, but he did not object to entertainment. And his plays are entertaining, very entertaining, in fact, right? And he even wrote musicals and the like. He incorporated music. So Brecht disregarded the Aristotelian structural principles of drama. Are you familiar with the Aristotelian structural principles of drama?
Unity of time, of place, and of theme.
Right. Yes. Yes. In Poetics, in 335 BC, before Christ, Aristotle laid out the foundations of drama. He said, this is what drama is supposed to be. So, and I'm going to quote Aristotle because I'm that cultured. He believed, and this is Aristotle, that tragedy is an imitation of an action that is complete and whole and of a certain magnitude. For there may be a whole that is wanted in magnitude. A whole, that is the unity that you're talking about, is that which has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, this is book 7 in the Poetics. So that is the unity. And of course, now you may think, oh, of course, beginning, middle, and end. Yeah, but this is like what? A lot of centuries, like 24 centuries ago. So Brecht hated this idea. But he took up another Aristotelian notion, that of the epic, and he turned it into drama. Aristotle, and in his Poetics, warned that, and I quote again, the poet should remember what poet, right? The poet should remember what has been often said and not make an epic structure into a tragedy. Epic structure, poetry, tragedy, drama. Okay? By an epic structure, I mean one with a multiplicity of plots, as if, for instance, you were to make a tragedy out of the entire story of the Iliad, end quote. As Sadik points out, Brecht's play lay out, and I quote, a series of distinct episodes that are connected through a central theme, but disregard theatrical convention and resist the seamlessness of narrative illusion. So, in a typical Bertolt Brecht play, you would find sort of kind of episodes, like skits, right? And they may make up a whole, but they are not they can stand on their own, alone. You can just see that episode, and that is an episode, okay? So he took up that idea, right, an episode, and then turned that into a sort of drama, right? In this respect, his plays are non-linear, so they reject Aristotelian plots, right, the linearity, but they are episodic. They resist unity, right? Well, Brecht, to emphasize the style of drama which resisted the conventions of mimetic realistic theater, he relied on illusion and identification with a character, right? Brecht insisted that audience members should always be alienated, distanced. Usually, and I was talking with you earlier, who did you identify with, who did you feel with, who did you empathize with? Brecht would have hated that. He said, oh, you cannot empathize with anybody. What you see on the stage is something of an instructive experience for you to come and learn something of the world and go and act upon the world, right? So he rejected this idea of you feeling in the theater. He wanted you to think. And he destroyed purposefully this very old Greek convention of the suspension of disbelief. We're going to see why and how in a second. He believed that the audience members could rationally think and consider the current situation presented on the stage instead of being carried away by catharsis or by emotion, etc. This, he believed, would produce the social change that he was after. Remember that he was very political, that he was a socialist. So bear in mind this idea of alienation, right, and estrangement, because that would give audiences the objectivity to distance themselves from the action and adopt a critical attitude. So Brecht believed that the function of the theater was not to make audiences feel, but to make them think. So he sought to appeal to reason rather than to emotion, to foster understanding of the social forces that shape our lives. In order to achieve this objective, the actors break the fourth wall, talk about themselves in the third person, use minimal props and costumes. Many actors even wore their own street clothes. They use simplified and non-realistic scenic design and banners and posters and announcements and visual captions that interrupt and summarize the action. We're going to see that in a second. Brecht used comedy to distance his audiences from the depicted events. That's what it's not like he was not entertaining, he was. And he was heavily influenced by musicals and fairground performers and street performance and the like. So acting in epic theater requires actors to play characters believably, but without convincing either the audiences or themselves that they have become the characters. A character is, an actor presents a character, but is not supposed to feel like the character, right? So there you have a whole bunch of features of the epic theater. Now, as I said, there is this principle of non-Aristotelian drama, right? So there is a lot of fragmentation, episodic presentations, right? So, is any of this observable in the play Wit? Here you have the presentation again.
Well, yes. I mean, we see that, well, I don't know if it is because of the place where the play was staged, but there was minimal use of props. I mean, there were things coming and going. I mean, the bed, a chair,
Yes.
a table, very few things. I wasn't sure if, because it looked like it wasn't a theater, was it?
No, it was
But
a hospital. It was the University
Right.
of Vermont Hospital.
Right. So I kept wondering if it was because of that that they used so. I mean, that it was a minimal use of props or. Oh,
Yes.
but well, probably characteristic of the.
The first thing that, sorry, can you hear me well? Yeah.
Yes.
So the first thing that came to my mind, I think I emailed you this. The first thing that came to my mind when I read the play was this kind of drama, because I recognize many characteristics from this. Apart from the props and the minimal props on stage, there's the breaking of the fourth wall. They talk about themselves and they directly address the audience. And so that first I thought that I could analyze this play based on the characteristics of epic drama. That's what I first thought. And then, well, I read the theater of transformation and I understood that there are some subtle differences, but I recognize many characteristics.
Okay, now I want to show you a short clip. This is from the National Theatre in London, and they put on a Brecht play, and we're going to watch this very short clip in which you have a lot of people discussing the making, not of course the writing, Brecht is dead, but the staging of this epic play. Okay, pay close attention because that may be enlightening, I believe, for you in your understanding of the epic play, which, as I said, is a type of modern play, but not the only one. You have all sorts of forms of modern drama. And you're going to see the Harry Potter's cousin here and as one of the actors, and a couple of other very well-known actors as well. As I said, this is the National Theatre in London. Can you hear well?
No, I can't hear anything.
No, it's muted.
How come? Excuse me. I'm going to stop sharing because I hopefully I'm gonna try again. I always have problems with this. I hate it. Let's see. Now, how about now?
Yes, great.
Yes.
Theatrical illusion must be partial, so that it can always be recognized as illusion.
Art is not a mirror with which to reflect reality, but a hammer with which to shape it.
The question of what artistic devices we should choose
Coming.
is simply the question of how we can get our audience to become socially active, how we can knock them into shape. We should try out each and every conceivable artistic device which can help towards this aim, whether it's old, or new?
He said that he would like on his tombstone the words, he made suggestions, we carried them out. He doesn't say he made orders or he made, demands and we carried them out, or he commanded us. Is that he thought this might work and this might work and that might work. And I think that the theoretical writing is absolutely like that.
He really had almost a strangely split mind between the academic.
Sorry about this. Oh, Jules, you're on my screen. Why are you on my screen? I said this was possible. Here you have it. It's possible. I'm going to stop sharing so that I can share again. Sorry about this. Okay. We are experiencing some technical difficulties. Coming to you. Why does one put things in a place inside a place inside a place? Folders and folders and folders. Oh, here we are. Okay. Almost. Okay. Hopefully. Let me know if you can hear something.
Yes.
Yay!
Theatrical illusion must be partial, so that it can always be recognized as illusion.
Art is not a mirror with which to reflect reality, but a hammer with which to shape it.
The question of what artistic devices we should choose is simply the question of how we can get our audience to become socially active, how we can knock them into shape. We should try out each and every conceivable artistic device which can help towards this aim, whether it's old or new.
He said that he would like on his tombstone the words, he made suggestions, we carried them out. He doesn't say he made orders or he made, demands and we carried them out, or he commanded us. Is that he thought this might work and this might work and that might work. And I think that the theoretical writing is absolutely like that.
He really had almost a strangely split mind between the academic part of him that wrote theory and the man of the theatre who refused. He would, even in rehearsal, say, I don't know what idiot wrote this theory, or I don't know what idiot wrote this part of the play.
I mean, that said, I think that what one gets from reading the theoretical work is somebody who is grappling with the profoundest truths about the theater and the very heart of what we talk about when we talk about the quality that we describe as theatrical. He sees a creeping naturalism that he knows in part is going to come from the most unnatural of all media, from film. And he's saying, don't try and compete with this. You're going to lose, and it's not interesting. I mean, I think that what he's really talking about is the essential dialectic of the theater, which is that it creates an illusion that is both effective and not at the same time, that it asks you to believe deeply in something that you are absolutely aware is artificial and fake, and that you hold both of those feelings and awarenesses, belief and disbelief, in the same place, in the same impossible tension, and that you start to understand through theater, I think he means to say, the double nature of reality.
But that's what life is like. You know, you can have Leona Lewis singing for the boys out in Afghanistan to try and lighten things up. And then 5 minutes after she's gone, poof, and we're not meant to sit comfortably and predict what's going to happen, because that's not what this play is about. And I think the more they throw in things that are unexpected, the more that they shake you up when you feel like you know where this is going.
The new sort of modern way of talking about it is distanciation. And I think that, you know, it's making the familiar strange and the strange familiar, as he says. And as I was just saying, I feel that there's, in a way, theater does that automatically.
Gary Sefton in the play, who's the guy, he plays the sergeant at the start, and he does all the bombs, and he does sound effects. He does the sound effects and various things. That to me is alienation. Because you see something that exists outside of the play, but in some weird way, and I still can't articulate why, in some weird way that was drawing me further into what was happening on the stage. Because there was something, you have the narrative and you have the story of what's going on, and then all of a sudden there's a man who exists outside the play doing sound effects of a bomb going off, of something else, but the people are experiencing what he is doing outside the play as a reality. And it does something very strange.
That's Brecht, absolutely Brecht, you know, very simple. And you may have noticed that also the stage personnel, such as the sound, lights, you know, and the stage technicians, where they would normally wear black, they would be in black during the production on stage, but not on this particular play. And Deborah Warner didn't want that. She wanted everyone to come as they are, in their own clothes.
So why don't they climb on the leopards, make them worn and weak? Broken down, they barely make it back to bed.
It's not only that you can see all the stage crew coming on to do what their job would be, you know, behind the scenes. What Deborah has done as well is she's taken every single wall away, everything, and you see that you see the theatre itself as the theatre is.
A limbo sky. Mother Courage observes the funeral of a fallen imperial.
For some people, it's just visually exciting. For some people, I'm sure it meant a great deal in terms of Brechtian theory. For some people, it would have said something about war and about humanity and about us all. So it was another layer.
His ideas of alienation, when he was writing this play, would have been staggering to the audience. They would have been very disconcerting, and all those methods have just been taken up as general practice. I mean, every play since then, well, not every play, but it's become very typical theatre language to see lights, to have abstract scenery, to have music. All the Brechtian techniques of alienation are used very regularly.
I and many of my colleagues, you know, Simon McBurney, me, all of us have made theatre within, you know, the slipstream of this extraordinary miracle of what Brecht actually did.
All right. Oh, okay. Here we go. Ideas. Now, I'm sorry for the long clip. All other clips are going to be very short, but this one I felt was necessary to exemplify the epic theater. And my point, because when I asked, what do you see any of the epic theater in Wit? I want to take up set designer Tom Pies, who over the end discusses Brecht's ideas of distancing, they say, or alienation. He points out that many of these techniques in the 30s or the 40s would have been staggering to the audience. But and he says, and I quote, all those methods have been taken up as general practice, end quote. And so it's become typical theater language to have lights, to have music. These elements of alienation are regularly used now. And so that is Brecht's huge contribution to drama. He changed drama, but a lot of what he did is used now, and because that is used, that doesn't necessarily mean that a play is an epic play. So attention there for the future, for your future readings or understanding of drama, right? And as an aside, let me say, whenever if ever we can get to travel again, try to go to the National Theater. We Argentinians plan trips and with a lot of time in advance, and you can always get tickets to go there, and they tend to be kind of cheap sometimes. So go to the National Theater. They always have wonderful plays. And if not, you can tour the theater. There is one of the London tours is of the theater, and you can go backstage and see a lot of fun stuff and props and the workshops and the like. So far so good with the epic theater. Do we have any questions? Because we're moving on to postmodernism.
No questions. Everything.
Yay! Okay. Thank you. This is okay. Contemporary postmodern drama is that. Contemporary drama is the drama of postmodernism, and is one that is concerned with innovations both in form and in the subject of representation. Now, think how hard it is to be innovative when Brecht used all that he did in the 20s and 30s, right? So think of the weight of innovation towards the second half of the 20th century. So even though anti-Aristotelian experiments with form generally characterized postmodern drama, in that it is episodic, and you could say that wit is episodic, realism is also very strong in the 21st century. By the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, postmodern drama in America had extended representation to socio-political groups, to new groups, and that is one of the postmodern contributions, right? Giving voice to groups that traditionally have not had a voice, like different social classes or ethnic groups or gender or sexual orientation, right? So these groups resist the dominant version of how the world should be according to those in power. Of course, those who stand in power have everything to gain by perpetuating the myth of one valid, stable reality. And remember that postmodernism is not at all about that, right? Postmodernist performance has expanded their representation to the margins, we could say. The appropriation of established literary and cultural text has been creatively employed by postmodern playwrights, as we can very well see in Wit, right? Many embrace a playful language, a playful style that openly resists conventional formalized notions of art. Think of all the medical talk, right? And instead they refer to that they erase what is high art and low art, or what is art and non-art, etc. in the politics of translation, Linda Hutchin defines a key aspect of postmodernism as the taking of a self-conscious, self-contradictory, self-undermining statement. It is rather like saying something while at the same time putting inverted commas in what is being said. And this is a quote. She emphasizes the postmodern distinctive character of duplicity, if you will, and a duplicity that articulates a paradox, right? So, postmodern drama. Postmodernism is an activity on the limits of the possible, foregrounds meta-dramatic orientation of postmodern drama. And you have all these characteristics, and different thinkers have included and keep including more. So you have anti-form play, chance. Hutchin adds pastiche and irony. We have a lot of irony. Barth, a sense of exhaustion and replenishment. Echo, the aesthetics of repetition. Baudrillard, concern about the constructedness of reality. Jameson, the commodification of concepts. All of those are characteristics of postmodern drama. But our peers who made the presentation, they took up a lot of that. And we are going to begin with, I was going to give you a quote on Tony Kushner's Angels in America, but I think that we're running late. So I'm going to skip it because we still have a lot to cover. Wit! Professor, so we're on to the play, and I'm going to let you talk for a little bit. Professor Ian Ashford, Professor Baring's PhD tutor, scolds her, you know that scene, on her choice of the edition for the analysis of Donne's sonnet, right? Death Be Not Proud. And she says, nothing but a breath, a comma, separates life from life everlasting. Life, death, soul, God, past, present, not insuperable barriers, not semicolons, just a comma. Then why the hell does the title Wit, or is the title Wit written with a semicolon? Talk to me. Any ideas?
Well, the semicolon represents a gap. A bigger gap than a comma. And that is what she finally will learn, that it's not such a gap, such a distance.
But what gap? Because what Professor Ashford in the end is teaching her, is telling her, is the division between life and life everlasting, right, is just a comma for Donne, a breath. But then the title is written with a semicolon.
But that comma, that pause she describes is contrast with the point of view of science, in which there is an objectivity to this. So there might be there a semicolon, and to Vivian's as well, because being a scholar, she objectivizes also things. So instead of thinking of this grand narrative, thinking of the minor narrative, the little things, the human.
Any other ideas?
Could it be that even though just a comma separates life from death, she's been like in this in-between state for a long time during her treatment? She's neither alive, neither dead, maybe?
It is possible, I guess, but why would it be a semicolon and not elision dots, elision marks, suspensive dots.
Yeah, you're right.
One last idea. I have time to listen to one more of you.
Now that I hadn't noticed, I noticed that the title had a semicolon, but well, I didn't think about it. But it does away with all the religious, I don't want to say paraphernalia of death and the afterlife, if we think it is just a pause. So, because if you believe that, then all the religious ideas about paradise and about hell are meaningless.
But how or why would those ideas be embodied in that semicolon?
Well, but if that semicolon represents this idea of religion, of giving this great step into the afterlife, right? Because it is the defining moment for every human being.
But that would be a comma, right? That is what Ashford says. Nothing but a breath, a comma.
Ashford says it's just one more step.
Yes.
It's not big deal. It is a big deal, but
it's not to Ashford in her understanding of Donne's poetry. Okay, good. I mean, good in the sense of interesting, because you're all thinking very modern. Think if you see that title with from a postmodern perspective, you could see pastiche, you could see irony, you could see meta language, you could see self-referentiality, you could see intertext in that semicolon. And that is what postmodernism does, right? It breaks away with these ideas of trying to find this unitary meaning, this capital T truth, and it's just a silly interpretation, playfulness for sure, right? So think about that. This is wit.
Hi, how are you feeling today? Not to worry. Brevity is the soul of wit.
All right. The whole play in 1 minute 27 seconds. That's nice. Main characters. I wrote main characters here, but simply because I wanted to include Kilicki and Postner, Jason, here. I always like to discuss characters at the beginning. And we know who the protagonist of this drama is, right? But my question for you is, who is the antagonist? In Sam Smiley's book, Playwriting, the Structure of Action, he defines the most important figure in the majority of plays is the antagonist. Although and I'm quoting, by the way, although a play can exist without one, an antagonist lends clarity and power to a dramatic structure. The primary function of an antagonist is opposition to the protagonist. An antagonist usually best represents the obstacles that prevent the protagonist from achieving success. If an antagonist's volition matches or is greater than that of the protagonist, the resultant crisis and conflicts tend to be more dynamic and can easily reach an optimal level for material. An antagonist frequently is responsible for initiating the protagonist's central problem, or is the leader of a group that opposes the protagonist. Other names for a protagonist are villain, opponent, or chief obstacle. What or who would you say is the antagonist of Susan Baring?
I'd say that the first name that comes to my mind when I think about the antagonist is Jason. But really, it's because Jason was so similar to her younger self. And I think that her conflict here is with herself, right? You know, in all this path, in this treatment that she's going through. So really, the antagonist, it could be said that it's herself or her older self, which she's trying to solve some things.
Okay, interesting. Interesting. Jules, I think that you were talking earlier when we were talking about the epic theater, about little, I know you were talking about the performance on at the University of Vermont Medical Hospital.
Right.
Same thing here, and this is Broadway, by the way, right? You could see there was nothing on that stage, or very
Right.
few props.
Only the bed.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, regarding your question, I thought that it, as Maria Jose, I think, was the one who spoke, that the antagonist could be Jason because he somehow resembled what Susan was when she was younger. But then when you said who or what is the antagonist, I don't know if the what could stand for either, I'm not sure it's cancer, but medicine probably, or the way doctors treat patients.
Okay. Well, that's very, I kind of gave myself away, because I would say that our villain here is cancer. And the antagonist, the antagonist in drama usually has speeches, and the antagonist is usually the second one in the importance of speeches and the amount of stage time and the degree of activity. This is, I'm quoting once more, Smiley. However, if you think about it, how much do we talk about cancer in this play, right? So that could be our antagonist, I would argue. I don't think it's Kalekian, even though I think I hate that character. And Jason, poor thing, Jason is, if you think about it, Jason is 28, and I think that Jason is young Baring. And Kalekian is Baring. They're both 50, they're both professors, right? I think that you have the two versions of Baring there, plus Baring with an antagonist, if you will. What do you think about that?
Yes, it is possible.
I was
thinking that the same as Julia said. I was thinking of cancer as an antagonist, and I wanted to ask you if in different parts of the play there may be different antagonists.
That is usually that is not the case. But why?
No, because I thought also that in different moments, maybe Bering herself, younger Bering, could be an antagonist to her development as a human being and not only as a professional. And then I thought of cancer, and I wanted to ask you that if it was possible to have many in different moments.
Remember that young Bering, right? The 5-year-old Bering or the 22-year-old Bering are flashbacks. We are to take the action as it is, even though they are episodic and they take us back and they help us understand Bering better. They are, in the end, flashbacks. So you should take cancerous 50-year-old dying Bering as our protagonist, right? It's not like we have 3 protagonists. We have only one, right? And Dawn could be the sidekick. John Donne, that is. Okay, we're going to start analyzing the plays and go over this close reading that I'm going to rush through some things and then pay attention to others because that's the way the cookie crumbles. Will this auto start? No, it won't. This is the beginning of the play.
Hi! How are you feeling today? Great. That's just great. This is not my standard greeting, I assure you. I tend towards something a little more formal, a little less inquisitive, such as, say, hello. But it is the standard greeting here. There is some debate as to the correct response to this salutation. Should one reply, I feel good, using feel as a copulative to link the subject I to its subjective complement good, or I feel well, modifying with an adverb the subject's state of being? I don't know. I am a professor of 17th century poetry specializing in the holy sonnets of John Donne, so I just say, fine. Of course, it is not very often that I do feel fine. I have been asked, how are you feeling today, as I was throwing up into a plastic wash basin. I have been asked as I was emerging from a 4-hour operation with a tube in every orifice, how are you feeling today? I am waiting for the moment when someone asks me this question and I am dead.
All right. Now, let me go back. Oh, I hope it doesn't start. Okay. That is our beginning. And of course, we begin with meta-language, a whole discussion on language itself, right? And I wanted to begin with this clip because it ends with, I am waiting for the moment when someone asks me this question and I am dead. I am a little sorry, I'll miss that. How does the play end?
Well, she dies.
Yes. Who discovers her dead?
Jason.
And how does he greet her?
How are you feeling today? Every time he sees her.
Indeed. So, first of all, the play starts, I mean, from the head start, we know how it's going to end. She dies. And I think that there is humor and irony, something hard to achieve, at the same time in this line. Because in the end, she dies and Jason greets her, how are you doing today? but she doesn't miss it. Triple irony. She doesn't miss it because the scene continues, right? After she dies, very briefly, and in a very uplifting way, if I may say. So, on the first page, and I'm going to go page by page, so you may follow me, and that may be better for you, to know what we're talking about. We have the meta language, we have the irony, we have meta drama, right? When we have, of course, I would not be wearing this costume at the time, right? Costume, there is in the play a constant use of polysemy. Like, we have the two meanings of things. One, of course, costume, because she's saying as if she were a clown, quote unquote, but at the same time she is on the stage. And does that help us or contribute to us thinking that this is a play or not? That instability of meaning is very postmodern, right? And of course, we have more instances of meta language when we have the fairy queen, this is not. How many of you have read the fairy queen?
No, not yet.
Not. Well, the fairy queen is a long poem written by Edmund Spenser. What is this? 16th century, 15th century, and it has a lot of books in the fairy queen, and it's a poem. Hold on a second. I'll be right back. Oh. Sorry, I thought that a book that I had behind me was The Fairy Queen, and it's actually King Arthur's. But anyway, The Fairy Queen, which is this medieval poem, deals with religion, politics, morality. The themes are morality and ethics, coming of age, justice and judgment, and appearances. So I do wonder, the Fairy Queen, this is not, but is it? And I find that interesting. And there are three characters, the Saracen brothers in book one, Sans Foy, Sans Joy, and Sans Loy, which literally mean without faith, without joy, and without law. Love, I'm sorry, not law, but love. And in that respect, don't you find this in her, right? She doesn't have anybody to love her. There's no joy in her life, and there's no faith in her life. And I think that to a very large extent, the fairy queen, this is not, but I think that somehow it is, right? And I think that Edson is presenting the themes of the play here. Politics, of course, not in the sense of party politics, but hospital politics, right? Same as ethics, etc. Now, very soon after that, we have, when you read on the right, you will find, on the section on the right, you will always find the quote from the play. Now our sands are almost run, more a little and then dumb. This is a quote from Pericles' Prince of Tyre. This is William Shakespeare, but I have a different version of it. When I went to my Pericles by Shakespeare, I found now our sands are almost run, same thing, more a little and then done. Not dumb, but done. right? And I think that this is somehow a little bit of a joke on the part of Edson, because she is and Vivian Baring is all the time thinking about what edition is this? What edition is that? What is going on here? What is it? How does that change the meaning of something, right? And in that respect, I find that interesting. Remember that later on, later in the play, someone has their microphone on. Try to turn it off or mute it so that thank you. Because I try speaking up when I have that noise and it gets tricky. But turn it on whenever you have a question. Remember that 5-year-old Baring says words would be my life's work, right? And I think that this is a little bit of a joke. And Perico's whole family has been an example of endurance in the face of hardship. So, you could connect this to Baring herself. Now, if you turn the page over, please, can you tell me how Kelekian addresses Vivian? That's
when the scene begins. There's
yes,
there's no addressing.
Miss Baring, yes.
Miss Baring. Mm-hmm.
Miss Baring, and he knows that she's a professor. He knows that she has a PhD. They are peers, equals in all respects. But I find that, perhaps I hate him for it, but I find that to a very large respect, that is dismissive or pejorative, and that places Kelekian in this kind of God complex thing. He dismisses her, and he doesn't even say Ms. Baring, but Miss Baring, right? And that is something for us to discuss or to think about in the future. What about the role of this man in this very feminine? What are the men in this play? You could always analyze this from a feminist perspective, and I think that would be interesting. Later on, when they are talking, and Vivian has her own thing in mind, she says, by cancer's nature, changing course untrimmed. No, that's not it, she says. Remember that this is Sonnet 18 by Shakespeare. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds. You're all familiar with this sonnet, aren't you?
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
We all are. So, hold on, because I do have notes and I don't want to get ahead of myself. Notice the irony. Of course, there is humor when she says, by cancer nature's changing course untrimmed, right? That is humor. She's taking the language, using meta language, and she is kind of making a joke, right? Dark humor, black humor, yes, but at the same time, notice that there is irony, right, in this. But the eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, right? That, on the one hand, and that is one level, and there is another level that I'd like you to consider. and we are going to actually see a clip when they mention it, and we may come back to this or not, but I'm going to go ahead and say it now because then I fear that I may forget. Jason is fascinated by cancer, right? And how does he call this ability of cancerous cells to keep replicating forever and ever? Do you remember?
Immortal.
Immortality in culture.
Sure. Immortality in culture, and and he says that these guys are the smartest ones in this world.
Right.
So it's terrible because it's, I mean, you're telling this to a person suffering from that disease.
We'll come back. Keep those thoughts because we'll come back. We'll come back to that when we see the scene played out. But immortality in culture is precisely what this, or immortality in literature, what this sonnet is all about. Notice the final couplet. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. And that is the very Saxon concept of immortality in literature. You become immortal because they sing songs about you, right? I find that terribly ironic and very, very funny too. Are you following me or am I off a limb here?
No, it's okay.
Okay, good. I'm glad. Following page, bottom of the page, when they are talking, I mean, Bering talks to Kalekian as equals, right? And well, he still has this God complex. And this is not dermatology, it's medical oncology, for Christ's sake. My students read through a text once, and think it's time for a break. Mine are blind, well, mine are deaf. Resign, but warmly, you just have to hope. The whole play is plagued with polysemy, I told you. And there's different ways in which you can understand one idea, one word in one way or in another way, right? Here's to, well, you just have to hope. You just have to hope that students get better. You just have to hope that she doesn't die. You just have to hope that the drugs work. What do we have to hope? That which is unsaid, I find terribly interesting, right? And turn the page over. And 2/3 down, you have a very interesting exchange, again, polysemic exchange. When Vivian says, yes, did you find it?
Yes.
Kalekian says, yes. You must be very tough. Do you think you can be very tough? And Vivian says, you needn't worry. This, you could write a whole paper on the use of modality in this play, right? And now I ask you, you must be very tough. And I mean it. Write a paper with someone from the linguistics department. You must be very tough. Is he guessing? Is he advising? Is he using obligation? I mean, you could say, well, it's not a question, so he's not guessing. But he could very well, you must be very tough. He's not asking a question. He is doubting. What is Kalekian saying? Do you think you can be very tough? Notice the use of those modal verbs there. And then you needn't worry. You needn't worry, again, is a modal verb. That the construction of needn't is used when you know somehow that the other person will not worry, right? So you don't have to worry, because then you know that the other person will worry. But so you needn't worry. He doesn't care. Or does he? We don't know. And you could, again, think about that in further detail, right? I'm just pointing out things that may be of interesting for a paper or for life or whatever. Okay? You follow me? Am I going too fast?
No, it's okay.
No, no,
Okay.
it's okay.
Good, 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 good. Just stop me if I go too fast.
Gardner's edition of the Holy Sonnets returns to the Westmoreland manuscript source 1610, not for sentimental reasons, I assure you, but because Helen Gardner is a scholar. It reads, "And death shall be no more, comma, death thou shalt die, nothing but a breath, a comma, separates life from life everlasting." It's very simple, really. With the original punctuation restored, death is no longer something to be acted out on.
Oh, what happened? Oh. I don't know. Something happened. I told you that this was a possibility. Are you all with me?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Okay. I'll let the computer rest for a second as I am reopening the PowerPoint presentation. But I wanted to call your attention. It's so much better. I feel very stupid when I'm teaching a class in front of a PowerPoint because I'm just, there's like no feedback. That's why I frequently ask if you're still there or sleeping or something. Now, right before that scene, I find it fascinating how you have, and that is something for you to consider in the future because that is repeated many times in the play. And that is an Edson feature, that she takes a scene, stages it in one way, and then changes the scene, but the words are the same. So when she is told that she has cancer by Kalikian, she says, "I had to sit down." She plops down. One page over, and when E.M. Ashford says, "This paper is crap, write it again," it was something of a shock. "I had to sit down." She plops down, right? And you're going to see it here. You're going to see it when she's talking to Jason, and she says, there's an exchange, and you're going to see it again with the idea of hiding. That she says, "I want to hide from cancer," and the little rabbit, and this is actually the very end of my presentation, not this, but the quote, the rabbit said, the rabbit's mother says, "You can hide, but then I'll find you," etc. Right? And that is very interesting as well. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open this, but keep it hidden. Yeah, whatever. Now, the whole talk of I cannot do two things at the same time, and that useless. But I'm going to cut this bit short. Here. The Holy Sonnet, and this is a good place to start, yes. Just sort of as a curiosity. Again, notice all the different instances of metadrama that you have. You have meta-language, metadrama, and a term that actually has never been used that I know of, that I'm going to call metamedicine. And that is what they, Kalekian keeps telling Jason, right? Clinical, which is bedside manners. I'm going to call that sort of meta-language, meta-medicine. It's like they talk about how you should deal with a patient. Now, when I read the play back when, for the first time, I took for granted Holy Sonnet 6, death be not proud, blah, blah, blah. We know the sonnet. I had read the sonnet before, and I absolutely overlooked the fact that it was sonnet number 6. Now, and I find this fascinating because it has to do with the type of work that I think Edson did, because sonnet 6 is actually sonnet 10. Yeah, you look at me funny. I know. Coming to that. Uh-oh. Well, let's see. I'm going to do audio. I'm going to share. Hopefully. Can you see a paper on the screen?
I can't see anything. Now I can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. It's there.
Yes.
So, the sonnet 10, please sit down, your essay. Sonnet 6, Miss Baring, is a melodrama with a veneer of scholarship and worthy of you, to say nothing of Don't Do It Again. And you have the whole explanation of. And then sonnet 6, the sonnet 6 that we know is goes like this. This is my play's last scene. Here heavens appoint my pilgrimage's last mile, and my race I idly yet quickly run hath this last pace, my span's last inch, my minute's latest point, and gluttonous death will instantly unjoint my body and soul, and I shall sleep a space. Blah, blah, blah. So, you could think, okay, what is this? Wait a minute, is Edson driving us crazy? She is actually putting the wrong number on a play, on a poem, I'm sorry, so that we go and look for the play. That is very undramatic because people wouldn't normally do that. We do that. The answer to this is, although this is a curiosity, this paper. This is a paper by Don Ricks, an article by Don Ricks, written in 1960. Wait a second, I have it here. 1960, what? 62, 67. I cannot find it now. But in this article, you will see that different scholars in different times have given different numbers to the same old sonnets. So for the purpose of describing the difference between the Westmoreland order and the orderings of Gardner and Greeson, this Gardner, etc., and you can see in Arabic numbers, in Roman numeral 11, death be not proud, it is 6 and 10 depending on the author. I just thought that the attention to detail on the part of Edson was very interesting. And again, very, very interesting. Now, we move on. Did you love the part when she says, name Lucy, Countess of Bedford? Did you like that bit? The kind of joke? Was it cute? Well, it so happens that that is also an intertext, because Lucy, Countess of Bedford, was Lucy Russell, Countess of Bedford, 1580-1627. She was a major aristocratic patron of the arts and literature in the Elizabethan and Jacobean eras, the primary non-royal performer in contemporary court masques, a letter writer and a poet, and she was John Donne's patron. Bet you didn't know that. So we have there a little picture of our dear Lucy, Countess of Bedford, who was a patron of John Donne, right? And she was a significant figure in the development of English country house and garden design, centering on her estates at Twickenham Park and Moor Park. Okay? So, Lucy, Countess of Bedford, was a benefactor of John Donne, right? This is from Perry. This is from the 17th century, the intellectual and cultural context of English literature. Since the garden was considered a primary example of art imposing order on nature and was also a place of pleasure, it should present to the spectator a noble set of ideas to convey motives that suggested the intelligent mind play. Notice how everything does come together. Many gardens were designed to a theme, such as the Countess of Bedford's Twickenham, the setting of Donne's better-known poems. So when she says Lucy, Countess of Bedford, she's actually mentioning someone connected to Donne. And again, another instance in which Edson, was very thorough in her research, and the intertexts are everywhere. The picture that you have on the right is the Countess of Bedford's garden, right? That has a Ptolemaic universe of concentric walks and borders, etc., etc. Now, interestingly, to keep adding information to your life, oh wait, I have a quote around here. Yes. Lucy Russell, the Countess of Bedford, was also a poem. She was rich as hell, but she was also a poet. And there's only one poem that remains by her that is an epigraph. And do you know the title of the poem? It is, attention, Death be not proud, thy hand gave not this blow. That certainly echoes Donne's poem that we are discussing in great, great detail. Twickenham Garden is a poem about Lucy, Countess of Bedford's lovely garden. We're not going to analyze it. We could, but we won't. Why? Because we do not have a lot of time. But it's one of those love poems that John Donne wrote. Now, right on the same page, we have Donne's that her work was her work as a student with Ashford was, as a research fellow, my principal task was the alphabetizing of index cards for Ashford's monumental critical edition of Donne's devotions upon emergent occasions. And I wanted to inform you, in case you didn't know, that the full name of that book by John Donne is Devotions upon Emergent Occasions and Several Steps in My Sickness, which again is absolutely self-referential in the story, right? And you have those layers upon layers of intertext and kind of frame stories in a way that I find fascinating, right? We keep talking about John Donne, and I'm not going to bore you. I promise I will stop with Donne right here. But Ashford, her PhD dissertation was very interesting. And my second article, read on the right, please. My second article, A Classic Explication of Donne's Sonnet, Death Be Not Proud, was published in Critical Discourse. The success of the essay prompted the University Press to solicit a volume of 12 holy sonnets in the 1633 edition, which I produced in the remarkably short span of 3 years. My book title, Made Cunningly, remains an immense success in paper as well as cloth. In it, I devote one chapter to a thorough examination of each sonnet, discussing every word in extensive detail. Again, that is what she does also, discussing every word in extensive detail when she learns about cancer. And Made Cunningly makes reference to a poem by John Donne. Surprise, surprise, I am a little world made cunningly, right? And this poem that you can read on the right, I know that you will start leaving very soon, so I'm not going to devote a lot of attention to it. But a reader is confronted with the difference between good and evil, and at the end with fire and water, right? It's a person, I am a little world made cunningly of elements and an angelic sprite. The black sin has betrayed to endless night my world's both parts. So a man is asking God to flood him, like the Noah's flood, to clean his sins, and God says, no, but I'll burn you, etc. So kind of interesting. Let me see. I find it also interesting, a couple of pages down, when we have no page numbers here, but let's see. 2 pages down, Vivian is talking to Jason, and she is going to get a clinic. She's getting a clinical exam. She's terribly embarrassed. Do you know what part I'm talking about? The medical exam, when she says I should have given him an A because, well, she is I mean, this is the beginning of her objectification, right? She is fragmented as a person. If you notice, when they cover her and they uncover her, this is the very beginning when he is giving her an exam, and he kind of runs away in stupor because he is shocked at the size of the tumor, etc. I find it interesting that she starts reciting 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, and then she begins, oh, death be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. You know, She is interrupted by Jason and ends in the last quatrain, right? I'm interested in why is the second quatrain missing. You could think about that. Next page, we have more instances of meta language. Kind of going fast here. Here we go.
You cannot imagine how time can be so still. It hangs, it weighs, and yet there is so little of it. It goes so slowly, and yet it is so scarce. If I were writing this scene, it would last a full 15 minutes. I would lie here, and you would sit there. Not to worry. Brevity is the soul of wit.
Okay. One of the issues that complicates the analysis of postmodern drama, other than the multiplicity of authorial voices, because the actor is somehow rewriting your words and the director too, etc. Yet, I think it's fascinating that, you get a book like Rayuela by Cortázar, right? And you have a blank page, you turn the page over. But in drama, you have to put up with Vivian Bering looking at you in silence, right? And I find that fascinating, right? The time, the silences that the theater manages, and in that respect, how these plays ironically, right? Because then she quotes Hamlet, not to worry, brevity is the soul of wit. This is Polonius, Hamlet, Act 2, Scene 2. My liege, my madam, to expostulate what majesty should be, what duty is, what day is day, night, night, and time is time, were nothing but to waste night, day, and time. Therefore, since brevity is the soul of wit, and tediousness the limbs and outward flourishes, I will be brief, your noble son is mad. That is the whole quote, and it comes from Hamlet, for you in case you were worrying or wondering or whatever. Think how all of these intertexts produce meaning in the play, right? What is not said, I believe, may produce a lot of meaning. Silences produce meaning. And I think that in that respect, this is a very clever play, right? Your noble son is mad. Who is she talking about? Or not talking about, because she's not, right? But we do have Polonius there. And we do have the idea of Hamlet here. And I find that interesting for us to think on. Wait. Yes.
All right. It is Friday morning, grand rounds. Action!
Dr. Bering!
Dr. Kalakian.
Jason.
Mr. Bering, how are you feeling today?
Fine.
Great. That's just great.
Grand rounds. The term is theirs. Not grand in the traditional sense of sweeping or magnificent. Not rounds as in musical canon or a round of applause, though either would be refreshing at this point. Here, round seems to signify darting around the main issue, which I suppose would be the struggle for life, my life, with heated discussions of side effects, additional complaints, other treatments. Grand rounds is not grand opera, but compared to lying here, it is positively dramatic. Full of subservience, hierarchies, gratuitous displays, sublimated rivalries. I feel right at home. It is just like a graduate seminar. With one important difference. In grand rounds, they read me like a book. Once I did the teaching, now I am taught. This is much easier. I just hold still and look cancerous.
Okay. Talk to me about this scene, please.
Well, there's a change of status, if you could say so. She said, I used to teach, I don't remember the exact lines, and now
I am taught.
I am taught, right. So this is the first, well, not the first, but this is one of the big questions she asks herself. I mean, who am I? What's my role here? And these difficulties or obstacles that she encounters because she's not used to being taught.
Right. And in that respect, she gets objectified, and she objectifies, I believe, somehow for the first time, herself. She just becomes an object of study, and in that respect, the step-by-step explanation of what is going on, the layers of meta language used are fascinating. And honestly, this whole speech could be a whole paper, because you could have on the one hand the reference to opera, you could have the reference to university studying. This is like, it reminds me of a senior seminar. This could be the reference, of course, to literature, and you have all the medical language there. At the same time, that we could not hear here, but that is there. It's supposed to be her, right? And that is the column on the right of the play, right? And in that respect, you could dissect bit by bit everything she says, and how that points in different directions, right? And there is humor, and don't you find it interesting that you have audiences? This is Broadway, and of course the theater is usually a very elitist activity, but don't you find it interesting how much people are laughing in the clips that I'm showing? Right?
Yes, and also in the performance that we saw, and I remembered a scene from Monólogos de la Vagina, which was terrible. And when I was at the theater, lots of people laughed, and I said, "What are they laughing at?"
I know.
They don't get the point of what this character is saying, but
it happens. Yeah, and I wonder sometimes if it is nervousness or what, right? I
Or
don't know.
shock at a taboo topic that is being openly discussed or whatever.
True. So, okay, we're going to round off. I'm about to end. I have 5 more slides, and that's it. Thank you very much. But I also want to discuss this scene with you. And only for 58 seconds.
It is said that the effect of eating too much lettuce is soap, or what is that word?
Sound it out.
Soap or feck? Soporific. What does that mean?
Soporific, causing sleep.
Causing sleep?
Makes you sleepy.
Soporific means makes you sleepy?
Correct.
Soporific means makes you sleepy. Soporific.
Now use it in a sentence. What has a soporific effect on you?
A soporific effect on me?
What makes you sleepy?
Nothing.
Correct.
I'd like to mention two things about the staging of the scene, but also of the play itself. You may have noticed that wasn't so in the performance that I uploaded for you, but Dr. Kalikian the same actor is supposed to play Mr. Bering, Vivian's father. And I think that, well, that again is very Brechtian, different actors playing different roles, but, and it's a big but, how does that make us feel about Kalekian's role? It's supposed to be performed by the same actor. Is the father on Kalekian? Is Kalekian some sort of paternal figure, some sort of father figure here? But he's killing her? Think about that,
Well,
if you will.
she's like an unprotected child because she does not know what is coming.
Yes.
And Dr. Kalekian or Mr. Bering are the ones who are supposed to take care of her and explain to her what will come as part of her treatment or whatever.
That's very clever, Jules, indeed. And also bear in mind that she somehow starts becoming more of a girl. You have the popsicle, you have her curling up in bed, right?
Yes, and because of her illness, she depends on others more and more. She's no longer an independent academic woman. She needs others to survive.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, she doesn't. Yes, sorry?
It could also be a criticism of Western science or Western medicine, in which the doctor is a fatherly figure holding all the power, and the patient is there, but totally passive.
As a childlike figure. That is interesting too. That is an interesting way of seeing it. Remember that when I told you that in the play you have a lot of scenes that are replicated, the soporific part later with Susie, we're going to see that clip, one of our very last, is very interesting in that respect. Right? Notice how things are constructed. You turn the page by the end of the okay, yes. You have the whole scene with a 5-year-old Bering, right, Vivian. Following page, bottom of the page, you have what I call the metamedical here, with Jason going right to, this is very bottom of the page, of the following page. Just look at the eye and sheets for 1 minute and takes you half an hour to do precautions. This is when Bering is in isolation. And again, there's a whole discussion on isolation. And he hates it that he has to take half an hour to put on all the paraphernalia to go see her, and then he's about to leave, and he says, it takes me half an hour to do precautions. 4, 7, 11, 250 twice. Okay. And then he says, oh, geez, clinical. Professor Bering, how are you feeling today? Right? And it is interesting in a play that studies language so well to see how by the end of the play, how are you feeling today becomes empty of all meaning, right? And we start to see it here. Oh, clinical, geez, clinical. Dr. Bering, how are you feeling today? Not interested, right? So, of course, needless to say, you have over and over again instances of meta language or meta drama. I will not talk about that. But following page or 2 pages down, Susie and Vivian are talking. Bottom of the page. Yes, they want to do it now. I've got the chair. Vivian, it should not be now. I'm in the middle of this. They're trying to take her. She is sort of daydreaming or hallucinating that she's teaching a class, right? And she throws a tantrum. Don't take me. I need to finish this. It won't take long. And listen, they are talking to her. Susie is talking to her as if she were a girl. It's not going to take long, etc. Right? Just come along. Again, in a way, pointing to in the direction of her just simply not being not only the person that she used to be, she is going back to nothingness. Of course, she is going into childhood as they treat her, but in the following page, they treat her like nothing. And you have this objectification of her as simply cancer. She is no longer a person, she becomes ovaries on the following page. But I flatter myself, the article will not be about me, because she's no longer a person. It will be about my ovaries. It will be about my peritoneal cavity, which, despite their best intentions, is now crawling with cancer. Right? Following page. Conversation, Jason and Vivian. It is, let me see if this is the scene that I want to show you. Is anything happening? Yes.
You grow normal cells in the tissue culture in the lab, and they replicate just enough to form a nice confluent monolayer. Right? They divide 20 times or 50 times, but eventually they conk out. You grow cancer cells, and they never stop. No contact inhibition whatsoever. They just pile up. Just keep replicating forever. It's got a funny name. You know what it is?
No, what?
Immortality in culture.
Sounds like a symposium.
Okay. Immortality in culture. Again, I will recall, as long as man can breathe and eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Right? And can we talk for a minute? I know that you're tired and you want to leave, but can we talk for a minute about Jason?
Yes.
Let's talk to me about Jason.
In this scene or?
In general. Because I think that this scene epitomizes Jason. This is who he is, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Well,
Very
passion, as we have already said. Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
No, I just was going to say that he seems to be only interested in that, in developing, in investigating cancer. And of course, he's not interested at all in the person, in her humanity.
Or in other doctors, because when he talks about the clinicians, he says they are troglodytes.
Right. Yes. Does Jason want to cure cancer?
No, he wants to study it.
Yes, he wants to dissect it.
Right. Because that is, in the final analysis, a very interesting point and a lovely parallel, I think, with Vivian Bering, right? I mean, did Vivian want to enjoy John Donne's poetry, learn the meaning of life according to Donne? No. She wanted to dissect words, and that is what Jason wants to do. He doesn't want to cure cancer to save people. He wants to understand it, study it, but missing the point altogether, right? Why do you want to research cancer? Is the idea of research the end, or should it be a means to an end? And the end here, apparently, for Vivian, as well as for Jason, is mistaken, right? Vivian does not know how to enjoy life, right? Obsessed with Don's idea of death. And Jason doesn't want to cure cancer, obsessed with studying cancer, right?
Maybe it has to do a little bit with what Edson was saying at the end of the staging.
Yes.
We saw that is connected with this idea of papers, some prestige, and a possible Nobel Prize. I mean, it was the interest was only there in studying and advancing, but not in healing, in curing or helping someone.
People, right. No interest in people.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I found the question and answer period very enlightening. Notice that when, where are we? Yes, Vivian at some point says the young doctor, like the senior scholar, prefers research to humanity. At the same time, the senior scholar, in her pathetic state as a simpering victim, wishes the young doctor would take more interest in personal contact. You see, Vivian falls in the same trap of what she did eventually, right? Now, I suppose we shall see through a series of flashbacks how the senior scholar ruthlessly denied her simpering students the touch of human kindness that she now seeks. And at some point, this is the story of the kid whose grandmother died, and he says, "Can you get an extension for the paper?" And he's like, "Yeah, your grandmother died," right? And that exchange, why what, echoes the question that is asked of Jason. Why cancer, right? Notice how the play takes us back to, and that is a road to follow to unravel, I think, the play. And where am I going? Going somewhere? Here we go.
Are you going to be sorry when I... Do you ever miss people?
Everybody asks that, especially girls.
What do you tell them?
I tell them yes.
Are they persuaded?
Some.
Some. I say. And what do you say when a patient is?
What do you say when a patient is apprehensive? Again, very interesting because Jason cannot answer that question. Apprehensive of what? When they fear what, right? Wait.
He seems not to understand.
Yes.
I mean, he seems not to understand what she means because, of course, he hasn't been there. So he has never thought about it. So in that aspect, I see that she has grown, she has learned because she's been there. I don't know if...
Yes. She has, but what does it take, right? And I'm finishing with this. Oh, geez, I have the worst time management in the universe, I have to say. It's like half past practically. I want to close with this because you say she has learned with two things actually. Over the end, when Vivian is already dying, he says, "I'm scared. Oh God, I want to hide. I just want to curl up in a little ball," right? Do you remember that? Did you find this? Well, notice how this is replicated the 2 pages down when Professor, the now retired, the emeritus Professor Ashford reads the story of the bunny, right? Says, "I will run, if you run, I will," and of course, always once a professor, always a professor, she says, "Oh, look at this allegory of the soul and God," right? And even though Vivian does die, I find the play very uplifting because the whole play works as a coming of age. You remember that I mentioned that earlier, as a coming of age of Vivian. Of course, for her to learn, it takes her dying, but in the end, the play is uplifting because notice that when she's dead, she stands up and walks to the light. And we know, because that is how the play is built, because we are told that there is such a thing as the allegory of God and the soul, that her soul, God is going to come for her soul, right? In spite of Donne, in spite of Shakespeare, in spite of all the literature in the world. And in that respect, I think that Vivian Baring, very interesting to think about that name, bearing, right? What does she have to bear in order to achieve salvation? She does achieve salvation. And that is pretty interesting and uplifting in the end, right? So That's good. Yes, Bettina.
When you were talking about this coming of age, I was thinking about a coming of age in reverse, like going back to childhood, and in the sense of purity, let's say, how she chooses the children's book instead of John Donne for the final reading, like. Which is also connected to Bunny's, the same book she was reading when she was 5. I actually had to check if it was the same. Well, it wasn't the same.
It's not.
But it's the same idea as coming back to childhood, achieving purity, and in that way you can be redeemed, let's say.
Well, in that respect, would you say that you see a wink at romanticism? You know, the Wordsworth idea of the child is the father of the man, right? This idea of purity in the end in children and not in adults. And of course...
Which I connected with the fact that Edson decided to, go back to teach at school.
Elementary school, right.
So that instead of pursuing a career in drama, in writing, or whatever, right? It's her choice.
Right, which she could have, by the way. I mean, if she decided to write whatever stupid play she wanted to write tomorrow, everyone would take it because she's a Pulitzer Prize winner, right? And it will be published and it will be performed. Then they could criticize her, but everyone would be willing to, as opposed to what happened with this play that nobody wanted to put on. But anyways, so in this respect, I think that through this journey throughout world literature or English literature and Shakespeare and Donne and the like, and of cancer, she achieves salvation in the end. She attains salvation. And I think that is the message, because when Edson is asked, why didn't you write another play? Her answer is, because I wanted to write this one. And that's it. This is all I wanted to do. I wanted to write this play, right? And in that respect, I find it fascinating. And on this very positive note, I think that it is time for us to say goodbye and to have a rest now. But do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. I always, at least this time, I let you talk a little bit more. I have to do a better job and stop talking myself and have you talk. But
sometimes you ask the question and no one answers.
Well, we have two very different plays for next week. They should be very interesting. For one, there is no performance. I mean, not that there weren't. It's also a Pulitzer Prize winner, Disgraced. It's right here. Look at that. Disgraced by Ayad Akhtar. Wonderful play. You will love it. I mean, it's very harsh, but you will love it. You'll read it very quickly. And Top Dog, Underdog, very interesting Black literature, Laurie Parks. Hopefully you will like it too. So that is all for today. If you have any questions, if you are interested in start thinking about your paper, or you need books or articles or whatever, write to me whenever. I'll be happy and delighted to help you. If I do not answer quickly, at least to say I'm busy now, I'll write back in 2 days. That is because I didn't get your paper, your email. Okay.
Regarding
Yes.
the final paper, one question: Could we send you like the skeleton, and
I don't
see. No.
I don't see why not. Sure. Yes.
Just to
If you're
see
going to
if
work
it's
on,
okay.
if you're going to work with drama, I'll be happy to help you. Yes. I mean, I can help you if you work with prose too. Absolutely. But you know, drama is my cup of tea, and I could always help you with theory and stuff like that. Okay. So. Go away, have a wonderful weekend, and enjoy yourselves. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank